Hello, Keith. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good.
How are you?
You remember the old childhood nursery rhyme about Humpty Dumpty, right?
It was something to do with losing a slipper, and the prince comes by and kisses her feet or something. Is that it?
That's close. You know, Humpty Dumpty falls off the wall, and then all the king's men rally around him, but they can't put him back together. So that has us thinking, you and I off camera, about today's show, is when you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, anxious, stressed out, who is there to put you back together? So I thought we'd go with that as a show topic.
Well, what's the short answer?
I was hoping you would tell us.
I'm focused on Cinderella, man. I'm taking a little holiday today. Well, it's always us, right? It's always the person that's stuck or hurt or suffering. That is the only person that has the power to do it. And we get back to the old idea that people like the idea of a guru or something external helping, or beyond even helping, causing a change that can only be made by you. Now, you have plenty of people who are great instructors, people who are capable of showing you the way, people who can give you tips and steps, but the actual work has to be done by you, and there's no exception.
None. I mean, someone in your life, a parent, a friend, a mentor, a book you read, you know, they can show you the path. They can highlight the path, but only you can walk it.
That's right. Well, let's talk about a couple of things that I think are important to start with. Number one is when you're feeling stuck, or you feeling anxious, or you feel like you're a couch potato and you can't get motivated. In my mind, the wrong road to go down is trying to figure out why. I don't think there's any payoff in knowing why. I mean, unless you have a physical malady that can be treated appropriately with medication. If it's a psychological, emotional block that you have, I think trying to figure out why. My mother did it, you're sad because somebody died. None of that's important, because what you're looking at is a problem that you need to focus on fixing, not the cause of the problem. Because thinking of the cause of the problem is going to reinforce that the problem is valid and worthy, and you're justified in being the couch potato and being stuck. Get off of that. Get out of the idea of analyzing why you became the way that you don't like you want to be, and start focusing on the kind of person and the kind of things you want to be doing to get out of where you're at and to put Humpty Dumpty back together.
I totally agree. You know, just playing, devil's advocate here. What about people that say, well, the why is important so that I prevent it from happening again? What do you say to that?
I think that you develop a practice where you never would develop it again. You know, if you quit smoking, you've quit smoking. If you're into an exercise program, you're into an exercise program, and you shouldn't lapse. If you do lapse, your psychological intent ought to be to get back on the wagon as soon as possible. I think the practice, once you develop it and once you get out of your old way, doesn't come back again.
I totally agree. You know, that's a great answer, though. You just really said it so plainly that the why is so unimportant. It's a waste of time, and it keeps you identified with the problem. I can give some examples in my own life. You know, when I would, growing up in the South, African American, and learning the legacy of how African Americans were treated, in the South, in the country as a whole, and understanding the why of it, it didn't reduce my suffering.
Probably made you worse. How could that be so inequitable?
Yeah,
I mean, what's wrong with these people?
Exactly.
Owning other people? Seriously?
Yeah, I felt even more like, separate water fountains, this and that. I mean, I felt even more victimized and taken advantage of and oppressed. I guess there's a place for history, but not in a way that you identify yourself with it, and it becomes a way for you to pass blame off to someone else. I'm trying to bring us closer together. I'm trying to be more connected and more loving. So in that way, the why has looking back, It's never served me. It's
Well,
been the exact opposite.
and-
But once I commit myself to loving Rick and being loving kindness, no matter how people or life show up, since I've done that over the last 3.5 years, you know what I never ask anymore? Why? Why somebody or why life did that? And I'm happier.
Yeah,
Huh.
I think that's true.
I should have met you a long time ago. But you know what? You tried to show me the way before,
Well,
and I wasn't ready.
slammed the door right in my face, ladies and gentlemen. 7 stitches. It's a long story, and I'm not bitter.
Right? You walked me to the path.
No, man.
You put me on the path,
No.
but I had to walk it myself.
You always have to walk yourself no matter what. The reason why, again, we don't want to do that is not only because it reinforces the thing that you're thinking about, but it plays into the victim culture. And you can't get out of you can't get out of yourself, and you can't play big. You can't be in the real kind of environment that you want to be in, to be strong and powerful or peaceful, playing small. And so what that does, being a victim, is it keeps you down. It keeps thinking, well, I have every reason to not feel this way because this.
Yes.
And these are really great reasons. And if you had, no feet, you would feel the same way. I mean, that's an extreme example, but the idea is that the victimness is worthless, just like the blaming is worthless. The cause of it is worthless. Here's the problem. Where do you want to be? What steps now can we take to start down the road to get where we want to go?
Exactly. And if you can do that or take that journey in a peaceful way to where there is no blame toward anyone else or there's no striving or achieving, this is your stated objective. And just getting there just kind of provides the heading, the direction that you are traveling in. But it's the experience along the way that's important to you. Because if you get to the end of that road and what you thought should be there waiting for you isn't, then there's suffering involved. But if you make the practice what it's all about, then whether you get to the end of the road or not, doesn't really matter. You're enjoying it and it's fulfilling every step of the way.
That's so true. The process, not the outcome. You're always hoping for outcome and you're always planning for outcome, like a race event, for example, or being more loving and so forth. But it's the practice that really is what's important. The process of the practice is what's important. Let me ask you this. Let's give the folks some tips, if we could. Let's suppose somebody's watching and they're thinking, I am really stuck. Okay, I'm not going to blame anybody. I'm not going to be a victim. What do I need to do? How should I go about this? I don't know what I can do. I don't know what I'm capable of. Is it okay for me to fill in the blank? What would you say they start with?
Well, in my own life, when I felt stuck about some things, and it still happens, I do the practice all the time, and the ego will pop up and tell me that I'm stuck or, makes me feel anxious. And in those moments, I always make it out of it because of the rituals. And for me, exercise is super important. Even if it's just doing a 1-minute plank, doing some squats with my body weight, something as simple as that, it takes me out of that circular thinking so that I can be open to a new idea or something like that. So that's really the first thing that helps me. It takes me out of that victim mentality where I'm stuck or overwhelmed. So that's number one. Number two, if I'm still not able to have an idea come into my head that's different, I'll call a friend who plays a big game. And typically, it's you or Tim that's on my speed dial. And you guys help me see the situation completely differently. So those are a couple of things that I do. So number one is I begin with my ritual after accepting whatever the situation is. I don't beat myself up over it. And number two, and the reason I do the acceptance and taking action immediately is because I don't like suffering. I've said many times, I'm committed to no longer suffering. So I do the rituals first. And then after that, if I'm still stuck, I'll call somebody. And then, like clockwork, every single time, I'm no longer stuck. What about you?
Yeah, I have a little different view, but we both agree on point number one. For me, it's always exercise as well. All my life, that's been a constant. I mean, there were times in my life when I was not in good shape, and it wasn't, and I was miserable. And so ever since that little minor break, I've always had exercise as the number one way of changing the mood. I think we have to first figure out what it is that you are, what environment you're operating in where you feel stuck the most. For example, if you're watching TV all the time and you're in the same room, in the same house, that is an easy one to break. You want to break that pattern, and the way you break it is with exercise, getting to a gym, perhaps being around other people. I also think a great break that's very much underestimated, and that's being in nature.
Oh, yeah.
If you can get out, even if you're in an urban area, drive to a park and just take your shoes off and walk barefoot on the grass, that's great. If you're in an area where you can hike and hear birds, oh man, so much the better. If you're by the sea, best of all, hop in, float on your back. Just break the pattern, get out of the environment that causes you to feel like you're stuck, and hopefully incorporate exercise and nature, and also the idea that you're not a victim. You're not going to focus on why you're in your situation, but you're going to focus on getting out and being the person that you want to be.
Exactly. And once you do that, or talk to someone who kind of gives you some guidance or a nudge, commit to doing what the plan is consistently every single day. And in the beginning, if you're really stuck, it's going to be challenging to do it consistently. So don't wait for motivation. Motivation is a fallacy to think that motivation leads the way. It doesn't. Motivation is a trailing indicator. It's after the fact.
That's true. That's true.
Very few people wake up ready to go exercise. Very few people. There's some days where you do feel like that, but most days when the alarm clock goes off at 3:30 in the morning, it's not like your preferred thing to do. So you cannot wait to feel motivated, or something is going to happen to where you're going to be inspired to try a different kind of approach to the issue that you're dealing with. No, you've got to lead, and the best way to ensure that you lead consistently is commit to doing a practice every single day.
And showing up. And showing up. Even if you can't complete it. You might even trick yourself when the alarm goes off at 3:30 in the morning. Say, okay, today I'm going to dog it. I'm just going to show up, because that's what I think is the right thing to do. But when I get there, I'm just going to dog it. 9 times out of 10, you'll get there, you'll be fine. You'll do everything, maybe even
the hard part is over.
Yeah, the hard part, getting in the car and getting there in the dark, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, the people you surround yourself with.
Yes.
We did a podcast
that's right.
Early on in episodes called, Your Circle of Friends. And those people really matter. So if you're stuck, make a commitment not to keep talking about being stuck. Not to yourself with that internal dialogue. That's why getting out of nature, changing your environment is so important. And the people you talk to. If they're people with the same conversation that allow you to talk about being stuck, make a commitment to talk to them about something different. And find other people to talk to that don't want to hear about you being stuck. I can't call you and Tim talking about being stuck.
Click. Come back when you're ready.
Exactly.
You got something else to say?
Exactly.
Yeah, everybody's got problems, man. That doesn't run you. I mean, it's a given, right? You can handle it. You can handle whatever shows up. No worries.
Exactly.
So one other thing I think that's really important is that the idea of self-care and self-talk. Mm-hmm. So when you're in a situation where there are other negative people, it's easy to go away. It's not so easy if what keeps running in your head are the tapes about you're a failure, you're fat, you're lazy, you've never been a good athlete, you can't do this, I'm too old. Fill in the blank, whatever you got. Okay, so be mindful of the self-talk. And I think one thing that really helped me is I run through a negative thought. Example, you're too old. And then I think to myself, I'm older than the people here, but I'm also more wise because of my years. I'm going to use that to work smarter and to be my best at doing this particular thing. So, and the key thing is when you have the thought and you think it, you're not saying anything. But when you say the solution, I'm older, I'm wiser, I'm going to use it to my benefit to work smarter, you mouth it, you actually say it. And the saying of it actually tricks you a little bit into thinking that you're already there. So I like that little trick when the self-talk comes up, you just tell it, no, that's not right. That's not right. I really am going to do this, and I really am going to succeed at this, and I really am, whatever your goal is, to fill in.
I love it.
It works. It truly works.
It totally does. And I do something very similar when it comes to the negative self-talk. What I found is that I have to do less of doing some kind of strategy that's like that. There are some cases where I have to, like I'm in a room full of like these people with these like long list of credentials, and the ego tells you that, what are you doing here? And I have to I have value, but not in an ego way, but I have value in that I'm here to serve.
And it's true.
Yeah, that's the value that I bring. It's a true statement. I'm here to serve. And right now it's listening and learning. And that's how I can best serve so I can go out and be more effective at whatever I'm asked to do. So that's one thing. And the other thing, though, is just really consistency. I'm not the most talented person. I'm not the fastest, not the strongest, certainly not the smartest. But man, I am consistent. and in the past, I was consistent at areas that weren't.
Those are in the past.
Yeah, those are in the past. They keep them there. The why doesn't matter. The why doesn't matter. We're here now.
That's the podcast of outtakes.
Yes, yes.
Life outtakes.
But now I'm more consistent, with healthy thoughts, with the way I talk to myself, with the way that I interact with other people. It's just, I'm consistent with it. And it's the same rituals. And the other thing that I think was really helpful for me not being stuck was accepting that this practice, these rituals, I will be performing for the rest of my life.
Yes.
Instead of like saying, you know what, I can do this till I get to a certain point. That's like saying, I'm gonna eat healthy until this point, then I'm gonna stop and my weight is gonna stay perfect. It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't work that way with exercise. Your life changes, so you have to continue to meet life on its terms, not yours or the way that you think it should be. And that's what I've done is I've accepted that, man, this is my practice for the rest of my life. How cool is that?
Yeah, and the thing is that you never stop having the challenges. We never get to the point where we've got, okay, I'm cool with meditation. I'm reading like crazy. I've got a great support system. I eliminated my self-talk. I'm really, I'm going to be great. Tomorrow you may have the most horrendous problem that ever showed up, but you got to remember to do all those things or you'll be overwhelmed and back at it. You never get to the point in life where the problems end. The only thing that ends is your anxiety and your self-conviction that you can't overcome them. You can, but you've got to keep that open mind and keep thinking, doesn't matter what comes my way, man, I'm going to deal with it. I got it covered, no worries. Let's bring it on, let's go.
We've shared what our practice is, and yours may be different than ours, but whatever that is that helps you be loving, be kind, show up as your best, that's what you want to do. And doing it every day is the key, because it's easy to do it in the abstract, and like, oh, I got to deal with my mother-in-law, or I got to deal with my spouse. To say it out loud when they're not there. How do you hold that space when they're right there? And they're pointing the finger, and they're doing their thing. That's where the repetition of the practice occurs. That's like an athlete saying, "Oh, I've seen this defense before. Okay, we've been here before. I practiced for this before. I see people like, I didn't go work out today because of the rain. It kept me in bed. How old are you? I'm in my 40s. Oh, so this is the first day it's ever rained? No, it rains all the time.
And you're 80% water anyway.
Exactly.
And you take a shower, it's, geez. Like, wait,
exactly. I just couldn't do it because, I've been married for 20 years and my spouse just, went and did what they did. Oh, it's the first time they've done that. No, they've been doing it for 20 years. There's nothing here to see. So with practice, you don't get stuck by that, believing the voice in the head that says that you can't become unstuck.
And another point I think that's very important is that when you do find yourself going down that dark rabbit hole of why you can't do things, keep in mind, monitor, be aware of your thoughts.
Observe it.
You don't argue with it, but just remember, okay, I'm choosing to look at it this way. Can I reframe it so that I look at it a different way? Maybe you can. You probably can. The idea is that you need to always be mindful of what that talk is that's taking you down the rabbit hole, because if it's negative, stop it. Stop it. Just don't do it.
And you can stop it, because some people will, what do you say to people that say, I can't stop it, What do you say to that?
Well, give me an example of what you can't stop, and I'll show you how you do it.
Okay, so for example, someone says, my spouse, or former spouse, or my ex, they come over and they start to do this, and next thing I know, it's taking over me, and I just can't, not respond or defend or explain. What do you say to that? And then I'm stuck in this space and I'm miserable.
Can you keep quiet? Is that possible? Can you keep quiet? Okay, and as you're quiet and they're bouncing this stuff off of you, can you go to a place in your mind that has some positive reframing of what's occurring? Right. This person is angry because of things that have happened in his or her life. I'm the recipient of that anger. Nothing to do with me. I'm not going to take it personal. So, quiet, I'm not going to take it personal. I'm not going to take it personal. I'm not going to take it personal. That's all I got to do.
That's as simple as that.
That's all it is.
Nice.
Because honestly, we are run by that. We are run by our monkey mind. We're run by negative thoughts. We're run by the idea that we're inadequate. We're run by the idea that we'll never measure up, that we can't do what we think we can do, and it's all hogwash. All of it. Sorry. Just get me so damn
Preach,
mad.
baby.
Get me so damn mad about it.
Preach.
Because people would be so much happier if they knew that they were competent, and it really is a life that is there for the taking.
Right.
You can have any kind of happiness you want. Just go for it, man.
And everything that we say in terms of, or we share from our own lives about how simple it is, it's really that simple. The ego will tell you that it's not simple, and you cannot come out on the losing end. To react, to continue to do the same thing that brings you nothing but suffering and misery, that's the losing end.
That's the loser. That's the loser.
There is a better, different way.
Once you start down that defending, grappling with the pig and the mustard, you're in trouble, because there's no way out of that. You've gone down a path that's going to take a while to patch up, and you have to remind yourself that's exactly what I didn't want to do, because it didn't improve anything.
No.
And I'm suffering.
Yeah.
And I didn't win the argument.
That's right.
Yeah.
That sounds like a loss to me.
Yeah.
But to walk away from it, here's when you know you're on the right path, is when you take the higher road and a part of you is upset about it. That means the ego has lost and you've won. The better part of you has won. And I gotta tell you, when I was first starting to practice this, I would walk away heated. I'd be so mad. But then I'd be like, man, that was still the better way to go.
That's the payoff.
Yeah.
And you didn't burn a bridge, too.
Didn't burn a bridge.
Didn't burn a bridge. And in your heart, even though the ego was intolerant of the fact that you didn't defend and you didn't act superior and you didn't win, in your heart, you know that you ended the conflict and a confrontation in a way that left you with your own, who you really are, your own heart, your own loving heart intact.
Exactly. And the people
That's who you really are, by the way.
Exactly. And the people that I look up to, you know, the great teachers of our time, whether for some people it's Jesus or it's Gandhi or Martin Luther King, you know, you look at some of these, Eleanor Roosevelt, some of these, you know, inspirational figures over our life, if they were looking at how we handle a situation, they would look at them and smile and be, hey, good job, well done. They would look at that as opposed to being reactionary. And that's how I'm trying to live my life.
Yeah, me too. Speaking of Eleanor Roosevelt, there's a great quote. You guys probably know it, but I'm going to maybe bore you by reciting it again. But she said that no one can make me feel insignificant or small or less than who I am without my consent.
So true.
And when you have that monkey mind running and your ego in control, that's what it's defending. It's defending, I'm not small, I'm big, I'm really the one who ought to be winning. You don't need to defend anything. You already have value by who you are. You're already a loving person if you just let it come out. That's who you are.
Right. So what's your final takeaway, Rick, for people that are feeling stuck?
Number one, you are the one who controls the outcome. You are the only one who controls the outcome. There are resources for you to look at, including people who are very successful in their lives, teachers, gurus, others who have lived life and have ideas about ways to get out of being unstuck, but it's you who has to do the work. Secondly, nature, exercise, and also the rituals that Keith described, the idea of meditating, the idea of reading positive and uplifting things, the idea of surrounding yourself with friends and a good, strong network who won't tolerate negative thinking, and then finally going back to self-talk, controlling the self-talk, and when you find yourself thinking of self-talk, you verbalize the opposite argument for it. That's not true, I'm not that person, I'm instead focusing on the process of getting out of this. And lastly, consistency.
That's it.
Every day, every day.
That's key.
Consistency, every day.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Keith.
I love you, man.
I love you.